Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
Friends, would you forgive betrayal after many years, or would you still leave the person who hurt you? This story is about such a case. Diana met her future husband at his best friend's wedding when she was 20 and he was 23. Their meeting was like an impulse. Mike couldn't take his eyes off this beautiful lady, and she noticed him showing her some signs of attention. "I can't get past such a beautiful girl." He walked up to her. "Are you from the bride's side?" "I'm Mike. I'm a friend of the groom's." "Nice to meet you, Mike." "Yes, Meg invited me. I'm here to support her in this wonderful celebration." "I'm Diane." For the rest of the party, they hardly left each other's side. The day after the wedding, they agreed to meet in the park where they had their first date. They enjoyed each other's company and had much in common. From there, the meetings grew into a stormy, intense romance. Mike was the perfect man for her. He pampered her and catered to her every whim. When she was sad, he did everything he could to cheer her up. He was kind and caring. He supported her in all kinds of difficult situations and helped her solve any problems that arose. A year later, they started living together. A year later, they were married. And many years later, Diana remembered their first meeting and never regretted that she decided to go on a date with him. But life doesn't go without complications in marriage. Their family was also affected. They both worked hard, each at his own job, but they didn't make as much money as they wanted to, and financial difficulties still made them feel. Because of this, there were conflicts from time to time, sometimes escalating into big fights. So after another conflict that ended in a scandal, Diane, being hot by nature, packed up some belongings and left her husband. She took up residence in the empty house of her friend who had agreed to let her use it so it would not be idle. Diana had been living there for a month. She was proud and she did not want to be the first to reconcile. She waited for her husband to make the first move. One evening, as the girl was shortening her time watching television, there was a knock on the door. Finally, he got his mind right. She hoped it was Mike who had come to reconcile with his wife after all. But it wasn't him. It was his friend, Jim, whose wedding she and Mike had met. "Would you like some company?" he asked, and without waiting for an answer, entered the room. He was holding a bottle of red wine, and when Diana closed the door behind him, he handed her the drink and invited her to sit and chat like old friends. They were seated on the couch in front of the TV in the living room. "Look, Jim, I'm sure it's very nice that you care about my relationship with Mike." She started pouring the wine into glasses. "But I've been waiting for him. Do you know how he is?" "He misses you, Diana. But he doesn't want to come. He's waiting for you to come back to him." "I wish I could. But he really hurt me. I can't just forget everything as if nothing had happened." "I mean, what's the big deal? It happens. Every family isn't perfect. Personally, I think you overreacted." Jim looked at her with some sort of reproach. "You know, if you've come here to reproach me, you'd better go." The girl was indignant. Jim apologized for the inappropriate start to the conversation and offered to change the subject and explained that he had come to support her as a friend. They began chatting about nothing while sipping wine, which soon became a little intoxicated, and their conversation became more casual. Diana relaxed so much that she didn't notice when the conversation turned to a passionate kiss. They spent that night together. Diane didn't regret her action. She thought it was a fair punishment for Mike's long indifference. But not a week later, her husband knocked on her door, holding a lush bouquet of roses in front of him. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have treated you like that." He reached for her with a hug. Diana melted. She loved him very much, and only now did she realize what she had done. But it was too late. But the days went by. Mike had no idea, and she decided to just forget about her deed and began to give her husband as much attention and love as possible. After the reconciliation, the spouses became even closer and more related to each other. After a while, Diane realized that she was pregnant. She counted the term and was horrified. She was pregnant with Jim's child. She thought for a long time about what to do and couldn't make a decision, and the long thinking led to the fact that it was too late to have an abortion. Throughout her pregnancy, Mike glowed with happiness. Already in the hospital, he took the baby in his arms and cried, "My son, how much I love you." He looked at him like he was a treasure and couldn't be happier. A few days later, the whole family was at home. Diana was watching her husband cherishing the child, and she was tormented with remorse. She wanted to confess everything in order to relieve her heartache. But seeing how much Mike loved the boy, she decided to keep it a secret and forget about the sinful act. It's been 15 years. Everything in the family was wonderful. Diana had forgotten all about her betrayal. John, as they called their son, grew up to be a strong and intelligent young man. Mike got a new job and was now making very good money. The couple set a goal to never quarrel again. They decided so, not so much for their own sake as for the sake of their son. They both valued him very much. He was their only child. They had been trying to have another for a while, but nothing worked. Humbled, the parents decided to give all their care and love to John. The family loved to spend time in the backyard, where the mother did needlework sitting on a wide wicker chair under an umbrella against the blazing sun, and his father worked with his son on his basketball and baseball. John didn't complain about anything except the occasional overprotective parent. And then one day, after a traditional training session, John got a call from a friend inviting him over for a walk. Mike, saying goodbye to his son, hugged him and wished him a good day, then sat down in the chair across from his wife on the other side of the small table. "We have such a wonderful son. I am so grateful to you for him." Mike expressed his sincere gratitude to his wife. "He's all grown up now," he said as he looked at his son walking away. "Yeah, time just flew by," she smiled back. "I am very happy to have you and our son. You know, I sometimes think back to the first time we met there at Jim's wedding. I'm so glad you agreed to go out with me. We have a happy family now." "Yes," Diane replied thoughtfully. "It's all thanks to Jim." It was as if she was remembering all the events of the past. "By the way, where is he? I haven't heard from him in years. The last time he wrote me years ago, he was going up north. They were kind of starting up a new oil rig up there. He was offered a contract and he and his family moved out." It was like Mike was remembering the contents of the last message from an old friend. "Why are you suddenly interested in him?" Diana twitched imperceptibly. "No reason. You were the first one to talk about him." "You're right." He smiled. "I got a little jealous." He looked away to the lawn where a bat and a baseball glove lay randomly. "I guess I'm a little tired." The years had taken their toll. He turned back to Diana with a sincere smile. "Well," she gave him an appraising look. "You're not so old." Diana decided to flirt with her husband. "So why don't we go have a little fun while we're alone in the house?" He sat down beside his wife and accompanied his speech with gentle kisses on her neck, lightly nibbling her earlobe. They did not leave the bedroom until evening. Only when they heard the slamming of the front door downstairs, notifying the return of their son from his walk, did the couple go downstairs. Diane busied herself preparing dinner quickly. Mike inquired about his son and then decided to help his wife in the kitchen. "Let's cook together. We haven't done that in a while." He came up behind her and hugged her. "Yeah, it's been a while since we've done anything together. You've been so busy lately," Diana answered, continuing to cut the vegetables. "Well, they say work isn't the wolf." He took the pot out of the cabinet, put it in the sink, and opened the faucet to get the water for the next meal. "Hey, Mike, I've been thinking." "About what?" "Over the years, we've accumulated so much stuff that we don't need anymore. It's just taking up space in the basement. Maybe we could have a garage sale this weekend. What do you say?" "Honey, I totally agree with you and I'm willing to support you in any decision you make. I mean, there really is a lot of junk that's piling up." The couple decided not to delay with the new idea and it was decided to do it this weekend. Diane started going through some boxes in the dimly lit basement while Mike was busy setting up low tables on the front lawn. Soon he joined his wife as well. "How's it going? Did you find a lot of junk yet?" "There's really a lot of junk in here. I didn't realize how much stuff was piling up." She was looking at the boxes with her hands. "You need to get those 2 big ones and I want you to get that one in the closet. I want to see what's in there. I can't remember when I put it there. In the meantime, I'm going to make some lemonade. The smell and the dust is making my throat queasy. Can I get you some?" "Yes, I will." Diane went upstairs and Mike obediently complied with his wife's request. First, he decided to pull a massive box from a tall cabinet. It took him some time to get it out and he took a stepladder to help him. When the box was almost in his hands, its edge snagged some papers lying on the far corner of the cabinet. Mike looked puzzled at the fallen stack, reached down, set the box down, and decided to examine what the papers were. Slightly shaking off the dust, he began to go through them. They were letters. Diana's letters to Jim, letters she had written long ago but never sent. He sat down leisurely in a nearby chair and began to read. Diana, having prepared a cold drink, went down the steps in a hurry to her husband. She did not immediately see what he was doing. She noticed only his enthusiasm for reading. "Darling, what have you got?" She began smiling, but the smile was immediately replaced by a terrible stupefaction when Diana realized what her husband was reading. She recognized her letters, which she had once hidden and in time had completely forgotten about them. She stood and mentally punished herself for not having destroyed them long ago. And now, by a ridiculous accident, her secret was revealed and it boded disastrous consequences for her. "What is this?" He held the letters in his hands and looked at his wife, but she could not say a word in reply. "I said, what is it?" Mike already shouted. "Oh dear. Mike, please. I can explain everything." She put the glasses on the table and walked over to him. "It's just a silly thing. It's nothing serious. Mike." She took another step closer to her husband. Mike tossed the letters on the table. "You, asshole, you call this nothing serious?" His eyes grew angrier by the second. "John is not my son. You call that stupid?" He shouted. Mike, I'm sorry, I should have told you. But I couldn't. I saw how much you love him. He's no stranger to you. His father isn't the one who gave birth to him. He's the one who raised him. He has no other father but you. He is only your son," Diana said through her tears. "You cheated on me with my best friend, you bitch." He swung wide and hit his wife hard, and she flew toward the closet and hit the back of her head. Mike walked up to her, grabbed her by the scruff of the neck, and swung his fist again. Diane covered herself with her hands, but Mike stopped and let her go. He walked out, leaving her sobbing alone. Time passed. Mike had changed beyond recognition. From a loving and caring husband and father, he had become a vicious tyrant. Not a day went by without a scandal in the house. He began to beat Diana. He brought mistresses home and entertained them in front of his wife, thereby causing her even more pain than simple beatings. He began to drink and lost his job. Diana had to find her own livelihood. "Mike, I've been thinking for a long time and I want a divorce. I can't stand it anymore." She came up one evening when Mike was sitting on the terrace smoking a cigarette. "You don't smoke." She noticed her husband's new bad habit. "Now I do. It's none of your business," he hissed back. "Mike, I mean it. I want a divorce. I can't take what you're doing anymore. It's killing me." She stood her ground. "You should have thought of that 16 years ago. It's too late now. You'll never get a divorce. And I'll never change the way I feel about you. You killed me with those letters. No, you killed me that night you cheated on me. Now I will kill you slowly and painfully. You will feel every day all the pain I felt when I found out the truth. You knew how dear John was to me, and you took him from me." He spoke, alternating words with puffs and blowing smoke from his lungs in front of him. "Mike, let's forget the whole thing and just walk away. Don't torture me. Please, just let go." She came closer to him. Mike got up from the bench. He stood there taking one last puff, tossed the butt over the threshold, and turned to his wife. He looked at her with a wild look, like a predator looking at his prey. That look made Diana uncomfortable. Fear again gripped her senses. Mike took a step toward her. She involuntarily took a step back. He stepped again, and Diane recoiled from him. And so she did until her back was against the wall of the house. Mike came very close to her, and she could feel his breath, the smell of tobacco. She turned her face away, expecting Mike to start hitting her again. But he was standing over her, examining the skin on her cheek and neck. Diane didn't try to speak anymore. She just waited for her fate, clenched inside with fear. Mike slowly brought his hand up to her neck. He took her by the throat and held it there for a few seconds, watching his wife's reaction. She didn't dare to do anything against it. Then the angry man began to squeeze his hand tighter. Diana was beginning to suffocate. She grasped her hands on her husband's arm and tried to tear it off. But nothing worked. Mike squeezed his wife's throat tighter and tighter. "It was the only way I could let you go." He finally said it out loud. "But even so, you won't get my forgiveness." Diana tried to answer him but could not. Her eyes darkened and she let go of Mike's hand. He still held her breathless body by the neck and looked at her face. Only now did he feel relief. He removed his hand. Diane's body collapsed to the floor with a crash. Mike walked over to the bench, picked up his jacket hanging on it, threw it over his shoulder, and went to his car. He got behind the wheel, lit a cigarette, and drove off into the sunset, determined never to come back here again. What do you think of this story? Would you do the same if you were the protagonist, or do you still condemn him for the massacre? We are waiting for your answer in the comments. And the next story will be about his wife's adultery with a competitor, which is no less scandalous and interesting. I have always dreamed of reaching great heights in my life, but I knew perfectly well that nothing comes so easily. You have to work hard and never give up to become a successful person. That is why I tried to clearly set my priorities. I studied and worked hard to become exactly what I wanted in the future. I didn't have any specific career preferences. I just wanted to be a successful businessman. But before becoming a rich man, I did not disdain a variety of jobs. My parents weren't rich. Therefore, I paid for the necessary education myself. Initially, I worked as a courier in my spare time. Money was tight, but I was pleased that I had already become completely independent and could take care of myself. When I was young, I met Karina. She worked in the order-taking service, and I also worked there as a courier. She was a very attractive girl, brown-haired with blue eyes. Karina, I wanted to ask you if you were busy tonight? I asked. Tell me first, why are you interested in this? Karina asked with a smile. Yes, I finally dared to invite you on a date. And I already thought that you would never dare. So you agree? Yes, Jim, I agree. Great, great. I'll finish the orders then and pick you up from work. All right, Jim, agreed. This day was filled with my feelings. For a long time I wanted to invite Karina on a date, but I was very worried that she would refuse me. But she agreed, and I was simply beside myself with happiness. I called my friend in advance who worked in a high-end restaurant. William, hi. Are you at work? I asked. Yes, Jim, something urgent? And I is very busy. Yes, friend, urgent. Help me out, please. I finally asked Karen on a date and I want to impress her. Can you find me a table for two? Jim, well, you give us a record for a week. And do you have enough money? William, I understand. Please help me out. I have money saved for a special occasion. Okay, I'm not promising anything yet. I'll call you back. I'll see what can be done. After a while, William called back and pleased me that he was able to find a free table for tonight. And now we were already sitting in the evening with Karina in this wonderful place. There was a rather bright interior, live music played. Jim, if you wanted to surprise me, then you definitely succeeded. I can imagine how much money you had to pay to book this place and order these dishes. Don't worry about it, Karina. I wanted this evening to be really special, so enjoy. Thank you, Jim. I am very pleased with your concern. I enjoy your company. And this is just the beginning. I will try to surprise you even more in the future. We had a great time at the restaurant that evening. Then we took another walk in the evening park. I had a lot of fun with Karina. I got to know her from a completely new perspective. In appearance, she was always impregnable. But in fact, Karina behaved quite simply and not forcefully. I really liked it. I didn't have to figure out what to talk about with her. We talked about absolutely everything as if we had known each other for a very long time. This pleasant evening was not the only one. We continued to meet with Karina. After some time, I made a marriage proposal in the same restaurant. Karina found a diamond ring in a glass of champagne. She accepted my proposal and soon we were married. When I promised Karina that in the future I would surprise her even more, these were not empty words. I continued to develop. I started small. I bought dishes from wholesale stores and branded dishes on order and supplied various restaurants with these dishes, any establishments that offered people to relax and eat. Earnings were not bad, but this was not the goal of my whole life. In the future, I collected enough money to go into a larger business. I made friends who worked in the seafood industry. I set up logistics and began to supply restaurants with selected seafood, a variety of delicacies. This greatly increased my ability. I bought a chic house and could give Karina chic gifts. And now 22 years have passed since we got married with Karina. Time flew by quickly, but I was still madly in love with my chosen one. She filled me with confidence. Karina did not need to work and she did not really strive for this. I provided everything I needed and even more. Everything was fine, but at one point the situation changed. I began to notice oddities in Karina's behavior. She was talking to someone on the phone, and when she saw me, she quickly said goodbye and hung up. Then I began to notice that she was going somewhere and was reluctant to tell me where she was. I was tired of coming home and Karina was not at home. "Baby, we need to talk to you," I told Karina at dinner. "What happened, dear?" Karina asked anxiously. "I noticed that you've been acting strange lately. Have you got someone?" I decided to ask directly. "Honey, are you crazy?" Karina choked on a glass of wine. "I hope no. But you constantly communicate with someone on the phone. You are often not at home. Even a blind man would have noticed something wrong." Beloved, do not start. I assure you, you are the only man in my life. Look at yourself, you are successful and beautiful, and I feel like behind a stone wall. Karina began to shower me with compliments. "Honey, thanks, but then explain what's going on." "Darling, don't bother yourself with this. I just decided to unwind a little. I want to change my lifestyle a little. But I assure you, there can be no question of any change." Karina said, got up from the table, came up to me and kissed me. "Are you sure you'll never fool me?" I looked into Karina's beautiful eyes. "Of course not, dear. You are the light of my life. Remember this and never forget." I willingly believed Karina considered my suspicions to be fictitious. After all, we had already spent so much time together, and the very idea that something could change in this seemed absurd. I calmed down for a while. Somehow I got stuck at work. It was necessary to revise new contracts in order to conclude new, more profitable deals. I dug into the papers and completely forgot about the time. I looked at the clock and was horrified. I quickly packed my things and got into my car. On the way home, I suddenly noticed Karina. She was talking to some guy and smiling sweetly at him. At first, I wanted to drive up and ask what was going on. But then I had an idea. I wanted to follow them. The guy loaded some things into the trunk of the car, then he seated Karina and got behind the wheel himself. I was anxious, very anxious, but I tried to control myself. Much to my surprise, we drove up to my house. Karina got out of the car and this man followed her with bags. Maybe he was just helping her carry those things. But the guy never came out. I stood outside my yard and watched. My thoughts were no longer good. I was about to get out of the car. I was waiting for the bastard to leave my house, but no one came out. And suddenly the lights went out in the whole house. "Oh, you bitches. Did you really decide to fuck right in my house?" I said in a voice with anger. Not only did this bastard never come out, but the lights were also put out. I was filled with anger. Karina knew that I could come soon and still dragged her lover into the house. Such audacity just shocked me. I got out of the car and ran into the house. It was very quiet inside. No lights were on anywhere. I heard some rustling in the hall. I went into the hall and groped for the switch and turned on the light. Surprise! A whole bunch of people screamed in my hall. "Darling, happy birthday to you." My wife ran up to me first. I stood in shock. I worked so hard that I completely forgot about my own birthday. "Jim, you're kind of pale. You're not happy with the surprise?" My cheerful friend, Kevin, asked with a smile from ear to ear and with a festive cone cap on his head. "Guys, this is so unexpected." "Thanks a lot. This is very unexpected," I said in confusion. "Yes, we noticed that the surprise was a success. It is clear that you almost put your pants on," laughed my second friend, Jerry. "Say thank you to your wife. This is what she came up with," Kevin said. "Guys, thank you very much. I'm touched." "Honey, here's my gift to you. I chose and organized this holiday for you for a long time," said my wife, handing me a box of expensive watches. Of course, we did not quite have time to prepare for your arrival. The courier just came in with me, helped bring in bags with some things that I wanted to decorate the room with before you arrived. But Kevin noticed through the window that you pulled up right behind us. So we all hid together and waited for you to come in. Karina told me everything with delight. And then everything fell into place. All these secret conversations and departures of Karina were only connected with the preparation of the holiday for me. I was touched and quite embarrassed. I felt guilty before Karina. All this time I suspected her. After a while, I decided to arrange a romantic surprise for Karina too. Karina was going to see her friends. I said that I would wait for her at home. I myself hired a helicopter with a pilot for this evening. I wanted to rain rose petals on Karina and then I had to land and give her a necklace. I hoped that once again I would be able to pleasantly surprise my beloved wife. I also bought an expensive quadcopter, which could stay in the air for quite a long time and fly long distances while remaining in touch. A taxi drove up to our house. Karina left the house and got into the car. I launched the quadcopter and began to follow her. They were already approaching the outskirts of the city. There were expensive mansions here. For me, it was very strange. Karina and I have never been here before. Karina got out of the taxi and headed towards the big house. The time was already quite dark, but the area near the house was illuminated by lanterns and everything was clearly visible. I hovered in the air, decided to watch. Suddenly, through the camera of the quadcopter, I saw some man come out towards the pool. I zoomed in on the camera and recognized this bastard. It was Victor. That bastard was my competitor. He put a spoke in my wheels more than once. But I knew perfectly well that his products were not of very high quality, although they were cheaper. But above all, I had quality and stable logistics so as not to let my customers down. And in the future, Victor could no longer compete with me. I had much more serious clients than his. Victor climbed into the pool and beckoned someone with his finger. Karina left the house. She went to the pool and took off her bathrobe. She was completely naked and climbed into the pool with this bastard. Anger swept over my mind. I didn't want to admit it, but I was right from the start. This whore betrayed me. She poured out hundreds of words about love and devotion, and herself, without much remorse, slept with him. I had an idea in my head. I still wanted to surprise this bitch. I just changed the plan a bit. The helicopter was already waiting for me at the site, not far from the house. I ran up to the pilot and asked for help to pick up something. The pilot initially did not want to help me. He said that we did not agree on this. But I promised him to pay more and said that he would witness an exciting show. And now we are close to these bastards. Not much time passed, we quickly flew to this place. I saw these bastards fucking right in the pool and then they started looking around because of the sound of an approaching helicopter. They looked up. I took the loudspeaker in my hands. Well, bitch. I wanted to surprise you. I see that I'm just in time. Get it? I shouted. Then he grabbed a large container, opened the lid, and flipped it right over the heads of those bastards. Instead of raining rose petals, it rained torrentially from the shit that was in the container. Shit covered those bastards head first, turning the water around them to a brown goo. I had a small guest house with a dry closet on the territory. I still did not have time to conduct a full-fledged sewerage there. The container in the dry closet should have been cleaned for a long time, but I didn't have enough time for that either. And then a great opportunity presented itself. These bastards were swimming in shit and trying to get out of the pool, but everything was very slippery and they fell into the pool of shit again and again. Knew that, bastards, like? I shouted into the loudspeaker with a smile. I'll kill you. You will pay me for this. Wallowing in shit, shouted Victor. If I were you, I would silently eat shit and not blather. Your troubles are just beginning, motherfucker. And you, dirty whore, don't come home. Nobody is waiting for you there. If you come, I'll release the dogs. I said and ordered the pilot to turn around and fly away. My revenge was a success. The pilot was shocked and laughed at the situation. I didn't find it funny, but I was glad I got even with those bastards. I quickly divorced Karina. In my position, this was easy to do and this woman was left bare-assed on the street. I also worried about Victor. I set influential people on his business. Unacceptable aspects were quickly found there. Victor often traded in spoiled products for which he paid. His case was quickly dropped. But things went well for me. I no longer worried about my wife cheating on me. I enjoyed a rich and happy life, putting betrayal and mistrust out of my mind. The story is decent and I'm glad our main character got revenge on dirty people like them. It was a pleasure to listen to. If you also like the stories, then write about it in the comments, put a like and see you later.